Hey everybody, this is Steve from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews. So let's just be honest, it's a really big freaking week. So let's just dive right into this. First up, we have Human Target #1, written by Tom King with artwork by Greg Smallwood. So this reintroduces Christopher Chance back into the DC universe. I haven't seen him in quite a while, and it's really interesting. So he's basically, you hire him to impersonate you for a specific reason. In this case, Lex Luthor has hired him because we assume, by reading the story, that Lex Luthor knows that he might be assassinated. So he hires Christopher Chance to play him, and we find out, yes, he was trying to be assassinated. And instead of killing him, they actually they've poisoned one of the real way they were trying to kill him was poisoning him. So now Christopher has been poisoned. So he now has 12 days to live. So he has to figure out who was trying to kill Lex, and in his case, him. So what we do find out, which is really interesting, the poison is very rare, and it happens to be something from like outer space. And the only people that could have gotten this is the Justice League International. So he's playing on the Giffen, DeMatteis, Maguire era of that. So it's really interesting. So we know that Lex Luthor was trying to be killed by one of the heroes. So now Christopher has to figure out which one is trying to kill him. So it's a really great setup. I love that King has been taking these sort of outlying characters like Supergirl, Rorschach, Adam Strange, and taking them and really just bringing them to life with new readers and stuff. But what I love is that he does not negate, he actually encourages like the history that these characters bring to his stories. So he really plays upon that, which is really a smart move, and I really love that. And then on top of it, in this particular case, you have Greg Smallwood's art, which is absolutely gorgeous. He's doing the art and the coloring, and it's just really just amazing. It really has a great noir type look to it. In some ways, it reminds me of what Darwin Cook did with Parker in some respects. Not the same, but very similar. It has that real mood and everything that really works really, really well here. And what makes it great, and what really will surprise you, I think, about Smallwood's art is there's really not a lot of action here. It's all subtle and everything, and then you really see the level of detail and work that he goes into really bringing King's script to life. This is a really great book. This was definitely one of the best ones of the week. This was really, really a good thing. So really good, great comic. So definitely buy. This is a must buy book. Next up, we have A Thing Called Truth, #1, written by Oleanda Zanfardino with artwork by Elsa Ramboli. So what this is there's a scientist, Magdalene, who has created a new like AI sort of thing. And what happens is, she's ruined her life with creating this thing. Her husband left her. He just wants a divorce papers signed. And then you find out one of the things she wanted to do is like, hey, we could sell this and it could be really cheap. It could help humanity. We'll help the world. And the company is like, yeah, no. So they basically kind of fire her by telling her that she resigned, that she went crazy. And so she decides she goes get drunk at a bar. She ends up in the back of her car, and then the next thing she knows, she wakes up and somebody's driving her car. So that's where the basic premise here is. I think where I kind of struggle with was Zanfardino does a nice job of setting everything up, but there's kind of like the payoff's a little weird. Like it doesn't quite make sense, and it really it doesn't, for me, it didn't quite tie into the setup. It was kind of weird. It wasn't that it was bad. It just kind of really just fell a little flat, and it just didn't quite work as well as I thought it should have. And it's kind of a real shame because I think there's some good ideas here. It just didn't quite gel very well. But I did, Ramboli's artwork's actually nice, does a nice job here. And it's a decent looking book. I think there's some good ideas. I just don't know that it quite panned out so well. So I don't know. We'll see. We might give the second issue a look, but we'll have to see. Next up, we have The Rush #1, written by Cy Spur, with artwork by Nathan Gooden. So what this is, it's set in the 1800s during the gold rush, and this mom is looking for her son who has disappeared, assuming to the gold rush. So she's out looking for him. So of course this is the Wild Wild West. So she hires a man to help protect her and guide her. And what we find out is that there's something strange going on where she kind of ends up. There's this out in the snow mountains. There's this thing. She has a dog sledding team that gets attacked by this weird thing. It's not a bear. It seems to be bigger than a bear, and so it's really interesting. I think this is a really interesting setup by Spurrier, and there's a lot of good things to like here. I think I like the setting and everything. I think it's the one thing he did really well is set everything up so well. You get to know the characters, you get to know what's going on. I mean, there's the mystery of like the weird thing that attacks the dogs, but that will come later. Then you have Gooden's artwork, who you might remember from Volts Barbaric. He's really a good artist. He really brings it really well here. He brings a good mood and feel to the period. It kind of feels like the period, which is not easy to do. I mean, you can mimic it, but you have to understand the feel. And Good does a really nice job here. He does a good job. And I think it's worth checking out. It's also, it bends on the horror side. So and as you'll see later, we have quite a few horror titles this month or this week. So definitely, I think it's worth checking out. Next up, we have Dark Knight Steel #1, written by Tom Taylor with artwork by Yasmin Putri. Sorry. So what this is it's as if Superman and the rest of Justice League were in medieval times. But really the big twist that Taylor does here is, instead of Kal-El just coming to Earth by himself, his mom and his dad comes here, and he hasn't been born yet. So he's actually born on Earth, and they basically rule the kingdom. So his family rules the kingdom. And then you have Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, as their lead guard, their general. But you also see there's small appearances by Green Arrow, Green Lantern, and Black Canaries, and the Robins. So so what's interesting is Batman has this like team of Robins. So they're like, it's really interesting, because what Taylor is doing here, it's what I refer to. This is an Elsewhere tale where he's allowed to do whatever he wants to. He's setting basically the Justice League and Superman in medieval times. So I think that's a great plot twist and really adds some unique things. And then Puturi's artwork is just really, really gorgeous. This is a great looking book, and it's a lot of fun because you're taking basic stories and basic characters but you're giving them new spins in a kind of a new world, and it's really interesting. I was quite taken and surprised by this. I think it's well worth checking out, especially if you want a superhero book, but you want to kind of something different. I think this is well worth checking out. Next up, we have The Heathens #1, written by Colin Bunn with artwork by Sammy Kivla. So the basic premise of this is you have quote unquote historical characters. You have we have Madam Shin, Sophia Blainstein, Billy the Kid, Lucky Lucino, and Bumpy Johnson, and then we have Joseph Stalin. So so it's a little unclear how they all kind of get together in some reason. I mean, they're brought together by Stalin, yes, but how they came to be and all that stuff's a little on the vague side. I will kind of knock Bunn a little bit for that, but it's not. I didn't feel that it was terrible. It's just a little like, okay, they're together, but they're sent to the present to find Jack the Ripper, who has come to the present. Now, how they all time jump and all that kind of stuff, once again, not particularly explained. He may explain it later, but in this first issue, doesn't really explain it too well. And that's the basic thing. I think there's some interesting ideas, but ultimately I don't know that it 100% gelled for me. It was like it was one of those, I think you read it and you're going, "Oh, that's nice," but it didn't really stick too well. And then Kivala's artwork is just a little on the uneven side. It's not that it's bad. It just seems like it seems like some pages were rushed. I don't know. It wasn't bad. It just was a little disappointing because I've seen his artwork before. It just, I don't know. There was something about it. So overall, this was kind of a little this week. Next up, we have Newburn #1, written by Chip Zdarsky, with Jacob Phillips doing the artwork. And then there's a backup, Brooklyn Zirconia, written by Nadia Shamus, with artwork by Zayed Yusuf Aryub. So what this is it's set in the New York area, where there's a private detective who works for the mob, who's called in on this murder case because the kid who's murdered is the son of a mafia boss. So the cops will call him in when there's something like that. They kind of, he's on the side, he's a former cop. And so what he basically solves the murder, doing detective work. But what's interesting is he ends up finding out that it's not what it seems in some ways, that there's a great plot twist. I don't want to give it away, but it has to do with one of the people that live in the apartments and how she is going to go forward and now work with him. And it's a great plot twist. And I love the fact Zdarsky does a nice job. It's not meant to be shocking. It's just like, oh, that's really cool. And I really like that. Philip's artwork is actually really, really nice. And the backup story is more of a Tales from the City sort of, fits into that crime noir thing, which is really nice. It's a nice little short story that's going to continue, it looks like. And I was really, really caught off guard by this. I really like it. I kind of love that detective sort of noir type thing. So that definitely, and then, like I said, Philip's artwork is really, really nice here. He does a really great job because a lot of it there's not much action. It's just a lot of dialogue and stuff like that. And it just really, really works well. I really, really enjoyed this book. I think it's well worth checking out this week. Next up, we have My Bad #1, written by Mark Russell, with Peter Krause. And then there's backup stories written by Bryce Ingman, yes, with artwork by Krause. And then there's one backup story that's written by Ingman and artwork by Joe Orsack. So once again, say it, I'm a big fan of Mark Russell. And what he's doing is he's doing social commentary with superheroes, which he has done before. So what he's doing here is, it's kind of if superheroes were in the real world, but they kind of had real problems and so you have the Chandelier, who's the Batman character, who runs this lighting empire, and he kind of doesn't give a shit about his employees, which is kind of funny. And so what it is, he sent a present, and he doesn't want to open it because he finds out it was sent from he thinks it's sent from a villain. They think it's sent from a villain. So he calls up his old sidekick that he hasn't talked to in years, and sidekick's kind of pissed because he hasn't talked to him in years. And so, yeah, hilarity ensues. I don't want to give any more away, but it's pretty freaking hilarious. And then the backup stories kind of do the same thing, where it's these side stories of these characters, and it's social commentary with superheroes. And we know that once again, if you've read any of Russell work, you know that he does social commentary exceptionally well. But playing in the superhero genre is a lot of fun. It really, really is. This book is a lot of fun. Krause's artwork's really nice. I really enjoy his stuff. He's done a number of things over the years, but this is really a fun little book. And then Ingman does a nice job of doing similar story. Now he's not Mark Russell, but that's okay. I think he takes the same. He understands what Russell's doing with the main story, and he does that with the backups, and they both really write a good story. And then that third story with Joe Orsak's artwork, he does a nice job. It's a really fun book. It's definitely kind of low key in some respects. It's not, you know, big booming and everything, but I actually like that because once again, when you do satire, sometimes subtle satire works a lot better than over the top satire, and I think it works really well here. Next up, we have After Dark one shot with four horror stories, four short stories. So the first one's by Colin Bunn with artwork by Cliff Richards. Then we have the second story by Joe Pruitt and Seisman Kredensky. Then we have a story by Jim Starlin with artwork by Nicolo Jelnik. And then the final story is written by Frank Terry with artwork by Joe Esima. So it's really interesting. There, like I said, there's four short stories. The first one has to do with a man whose wife has passed, and her final wish is that she takes his ashes to all the places that he visited. And it's a great Twilight Zone story. It has really, it's a good story with really nice artwork, and it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed that story. The second one is a Black Eyes Kid story. Now, that's was a series previously. You don't need to have read that. It's a standalone story. It gives you a flavor of that book, but totally stands on its own. It's the basic premise of that story is that be careful what you wish for, because if you make a deal with the devil, because there is a price to pay. And the story is really good. The artwork's really nice. The Jim Starlin written one's kind of interesting. It's probably the shortest of the bunch, but it's one of those post-apocalyptic, you know, stories, and just has a simple message, and it really works in that respect because it's just short and simple. And then the final story is a play on the fable Along Came a Spider, and it does a really nice job of playing that, and I do not like spiders, so it really is a good story, and it has a nice twist to that fable. So overall, it's really good. I think there's a lot of good talent here. The stories are really good. They were all well done and everything. The artwork's really nice, and it's kind of a good deal for $7. Beyond, you get 4 stories. It's the oversized, so you get to see the artwork really nice, and it's good horror. And right now there seems to be a lot of really good horror. So this is definitely a plus. Next up, we have Arkham City, The Order of the World #2, written by Dan Waters with artwork by Danny. So what this is you have the doctor from Arkham Asylum who's trying to basically find the inmates that weren't killed in the Great Joker gassing have escaped. And so there's that, and then there's the fear state thing. Now, first of all, I don't think you really need to have read the Joker Wars or the current fear state. This really stands on its own. I will give Waters that he does a nice job of giving you the information you need to know to get to the story. You know, he'll explain, oh, Joker releases fear toxin. Great. That toxin. That's all you need to know. So what it is now you have, the 10-eyed man actually helping the doctor realize that Arkham Asylum is, well, the Arkham built his house, and actually Gotham City is actually an asylum the way it's laid out. And it's really intriguing how like that, you're like, oh, that's really a neat concept, how the city itself was built as an asylum. So maybe that explains a lot of why Gotham is kind of always effed up. So it really, I love that Waters is really digging in. I love the fact that he's not also dealing with main Batman villains. I like that the 10-eyed man is kind of a unique villain in the mythology of the Gotham. And like I said, the story is really intriguing. I love that it's moody and misty. And then you have Danny, whose artwork is just really, really stunning. She's a really great artist, and it's really wonderful stuff. And I'm really enjoying this. This is really a big surprise, and it's really worth checking out. And I really have enjoyed it, and I think you should definitely be picking this up. Next up, we have Primordial #2, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Andrea Sorrentino. So the basic premise here from the first issue is that NASA's being disbanded, the space race is over, it's not going to happen, but both American and Russians did shoot animals into space. So what we found out in the first issue is that there is the pets have been, or the animals are like in this other weird dimension in space. And so that's what we were kind of left in the first issue. So now this issue, Lemire deals with the story of the dog Laika. And the interesting thing is, this is the type of story that washes over you. It doesn't really necessarily give you all the answers. It definitely asks a lot more, it shows more questions than answers. But what's interesting is how you have the story of the alternate, this weird dimension thing, but you also have the scientist who's trying to figure out what's going on, because there's obviously a story, or there's something that is happening, and he's trying to find this out. So he's on this quest to like find this out, and it's almost like this super spy sort of thing that he's involved with. And then we have the pets, the animals story. So there's kind of a lot going on, but once again, more questions than answers. And it's more ethereal sort of thing. Like, it's more of like, we really don't know what the hell's going on, but it's really an interesting read, what you do read. And then Sorrentino just really has been knocking it out. The artwork is fantastic. I love how the real world art style is one, and then the weird dimension thing, he kind of does a different style, and it really benefits the book. It's really a great looking book. I'm really enjoying it, but once again, I will forewarn you, it's a slow burn and something that washes over you. So it's just definitely take that into consideration. Next up, we have Soul Plumber #2, written by Marcus Park and Henry Zabowski. With the layouts by John McCrae and PJ Holden, and then the inks by John McCrae. So now that Edgar has basically built this machine to suck the evilness out of people, he unfortunately he had the blueprints, but he didn't actually have like the material, so he built his machine from trash. And so he ends up killing his best friend, and he sucks something out. And we kind of find out this issue, he didn't really, I don't know if he sucked something out or he opened a hole to a new dimension, but we now have this weird creature that floats. It's not like a cloud, but it's like something weird. And we find out it's a creature, it's something from another dimension that has come here, and now it's like, hey, I kind of want to, I like humans. I'll try to be like humans. And there's something that's really sick and weird that happens with that, which I will not go into details. It's really visually like effed up. And so Edgar, so we now, one thing that I like about the script that Zabrowski and Parks does here is they go back and we learn more about Edgar's life and how he wanted to be a priest, how he went to the seminary, it didn't work out, but it all leads to like kind of this weird, like, what's now going on with him. He's trying to become this like priest in a way, and it worked, but it's really messed up. And this is such an odd book, but it's so great because it is so off the wall and insane. And it just really is wonderful. I love that DC is getting back into the horror. And like I said, Parks and Zabrowski's story is just really intriguing. I think there's a lot more. We keep learning about Edgar and all this weird stuff. And now we have this weird blobby sort of other dimension thing that's just, it just gets weird, but it's amazingly weird. And then Holden and McCrae's artwork is really wonderful. They're really perfect for this. They give it the great gritty style that it needs, and it's really wonderful stuff. It's really worth checking out. I really enjoying this book. Next up, we have Superman 78 #3, written by Robert Venditti with artwork by Wilfredo Torres. So this continues the Richard Donner mythology from the original film, but also incorporates stuff from the second film. So now that Brainiac has captured Superman, we find out that what he does is Brainiac, creates. He basically shrinks everything down. Like, once again, the bottled city of Kandor is created by Brainiac. So what he has done, what we find out is that he has actually saved part of Krypton, and we find out that Superman's mom and dad are still alive. So there is a little Krypton that he has. So Kal-El is actually back to meet his parents, something that he's obviously always dreamed of, because Krypton for him was destroyed. So it's really interesting, and I love how Vendetti is taking that mythology from the Richard Donner films and incorporating like comic stuff, but also like really expanding the world of, like, because he can use Marlon Brando and Susanna York, and he can use all this stuff. It's like playing in a sandbox that was never available, and of course with comics you have the unlimited budget and everything, and you can do whatever you want. And Torres really just knocks out of the park. His artwork's really fantastic. It does a great job of capturing the actors and everything, and he also makes it feel like the Richard Donner thing visually too, which is really a big plus. They're both just, this book is wonderful. I love the original film, and then this comic's just absolutely amazing. Next up, we have Amazing Fantasy number 4, written and drawn by Carr Andrews. So the last issue was the big battle. Everybody, really, tons of people are dead. Then we find out that the king has actually, this whole thing was planned. If you basically set the fractions of people against each other, they're going to go to war, and that's what he wanted, because now he has created an army of the dead, which is exactly what he wanted. So he has an army of the dead. Cap, Spidey, Black Widow are in jail. And we also find out that we find out who the really main man behind this whole thing is, that it's not just the king or previously the prince. And it's really intriguing. So this issue is kind of a setup for the finale, which will be the next issue. So there's a lot of setup here for that big finale. So that's really what this issue is. It works really well. This has really been wonderful. Andrew's story is really unique. It's a what if type story, and I love that. And he really just he really just knocks it out of the park. And it's really good stuff. And then you have his artwork, which is absolutely gorgeous. It's wonderful. It's a great looking book. You really need to check it out. It's really just wonderful. Next up, we have The Me You Love in the Dark number 4, written by Scotty Young with artwork by George Corona. So this issue, we find out. So the last issue, we find out that the artist and the entity that's in the house consummate their relationship. And so this issue is basically the honeymoon's over. She kind of wants to leave. The house doesn't want her to leave. We still don't know why he or it keeps her there. And that's really interesting. And then her agent comes, and he basically, it doesn't bode well for him. It's not looking good. The house hasn't killed him yet, but it's not looking good. So that's kind of where we're at with the story so far. It's really an intriguing story. I love the fact that it's set in one location. Young has done a really good job of ramping the creepiness of this thing without like being overdone. And then Corona's artwork is just absolutely gorgeous here. It really is a great looking book. It's a really good story. And I'm really not that I've been surprised, because they did such a wonderful job on Middle West, but it's a really good book, and it's really worth checking out. I really enjoy this. Next up, we have Batman Reptilian number 5, written by Garth Ennis and artwork by Liam Sharp. So now we have figured out that Killer Croc had a baby. So apparently he has both parts. And apparently the baby has both parts. So the baby comes back and says, "Hey, I want you to make me a new baby." And Killer Croc's like, "I don't think so." And so what this issue is kind of doing, so Batman is like, we need to kill this thing. And he kind of needs Killer Croc to kind of help him, because actually having Killer Croc around seems to, like, the baby isn't going to kill them right instantaneously. And so that's kind of where this issue really lands. It's weird, but Enith pulls it. How he can pull all this insanity together is beyond me. But it's really funky and crazy, and I just love it to death. And then Sharp, I love that he's doing painted artwork. It really captures, like, the insanity of the story, but he gives it such a really gothic, amazing look that it really is wonderful. I know that not everybody, likes this type of art, but it fits this story so well, and it's so perfect. And they're really, Enith and Sharp are just firing on all cylinders here. And it's a really wild Batman story, and I love that. And it's just, you really should be picking up. It's really a good book. Next up, we have The Silver Coin, number 6, written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Michael Walsh. So once again, these are one and done stories, and they're horror stories, and they're all connected. They all have, like, a coin. Somehow a coin gets into the story, and that's the thread of all these stories, but they do stand alone. So this one is set in the 80s in an arcade, and it's so there's this little kid who he's playing. He's not very good at it. It's kind of like a Mortal Kombat type game. So he finds the coin in the fountain, and the coin calls him, surprise, and then he starts playing the game, and then he basically kind of becomes the game. And that's the basic premise of the story. It's really good. Williamson has a lot of fun here. I love how he sets it like in the 80s, but doesn't kind of make a big deal out of it, but he does hit on things that would be during that period. The video game, it's a great story. It's kind of been told before, but he does it well here. Then Walsh has just really been knocking out of the park on the artwork, and this is a really good looking book, and there's some great stuff that he does in this issue. And once again, these are standalone issues. You don't have to have read any of the previous one. You can just read this one by itself. Ignore the number on it. Just pick up. These have been really, really fun books. Next up, we have Swamp Thing number 9, written by Ram V with Mike Perkins. So we're in the next to last issue. So if you haven't been reading it, shame on you. Just wait. There's going to be a trade. But what I love about this is it's the culmination that Ram V has been leaning up to with the story of Levi has now become part of the Green, but then there's also his brother who is kind of the evil Green. That's the best way to describe it. So now this has come together where the evil Green is trying to stop the man who is trying to basically capture Swamp Thing, and Levi has to save his friend. And that's really where we're at in the story. And this issue really just sets up so much. But it also is the culmination of, like, what the story has been so far. This has been, I really love Swamp Thing, and there's been some really good Swamp Things, as we all know, but there's been some not so good Swamp Things. Thankfully, Ram V has done his homework, and he really gets Swamp Thing. And Swamp Thing is not an easy character to write, and he does it really well here, and I really have to give it to Perkins. This book has been so amazing looking, and this issue in particular was just absolutely stunning. I don't know how he pulls it off, but it's a great looking book. The story is fabulous, and I really can't wait to see how they wrap up this whole story. So once again, really check it out. Next up, we have Batman the Adventures Continues Season 2, number 6. That's a mouthful. Written by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini with artwork by Rick Burchett. So this is continues the mayoral race where the mob is trying to basically instill one of their own as a mayor. So we're still continuing that storyline. So that's kind of where it's going. And it's a lot of fun. I like the fact that I particularly like this storyline because in a lot of ways it's not necessarily a superhero versus super villain per se story. It's kind of a deeper and longer storyline that I like, because stuff like this they wouldn't really have been allowed to do as in the animated series, but they can do it here. And Denny and Burnett just really, I love how they just let the story just flows really well, and there's a lot of like just good stuff here. And if you're a fan of the animated series, it's really good. Rick Burchett just really he's drawn the animated series many times before, and he just really knocks it out of the park. I'm really enjoying this. If you're a fan of the series, you should definitely be picking it up. And finally this week we have Firepower number 17, the best book you're not reading, written by Robert Kirkman with artwork by Chris Samnee. So we have Owen Kelly and Ling Zan. Now they're finding Master Shaw, who's came to life. He's not a statue anymore. And basically all hell's breaking loose, and there's stakes all over the place. And it's up to them to try to stop this whole thing. And it's kind of not going so well. And it just, once again, I have to say, I'm not necessarily the hugest Robert Kirkman fan. I don't think he's a bad writer. I don't love all his stuff. But I really have to say, I think this might be one of the best books he's actually ever written. And I really, really enjoy it. And I think a lot of that has to really do with his collaboration with Samnee, who really is just not only brings the artwork every issue. This is a gorgeous looking book. I love this book to death. But just the way they gel together so well, it's really amazing. And it's just absolutely just it's great stuff. And it's a really great book. The story is great, but I think what I love the most about is how the story really has to do with family, about Owen and Kelly and the kids, and then of course the family that's created, with Ling Zhang and the monastery. It's a really wonderful book. And then once again, I go back to Samnee's artwork, who's just really it's a gorgeous looking book. And honestly, it's just please pick up the trades. This is really a good book. You really need to be reading this book. It's really wonderful stuff. That's going to do it this week. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics Long Beach, California. Ryan runs a great store. Annie and Eduardo are fantastic. They offer a great pull service discount on their trades and graphic novels. And they have a sister store in Culver City. Separate stores, same name. Pulp Fiction Culver City, run by Chris and her team. Once again, they offer a great pull service and discounts on their trades and graphic novels. If you live in the LA area, definitely check out the stores. And as always, no matter where you live, please support your local comic shop. These are tough times, especially with the printing and the paper shortage and all this stuff. Really, really make sure you support them. And if you have a pull service, make sure you pick up your books. That's really important. And as always, please be safe out there. Please get vaccinated. Please wear your mask. Be safe. Social distance. I fortunately have been able to get my booster shot, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll make it through this winter really well. Things are creeping up a little bit, so let's continue to be safe. And as always, please be kind. Kindness goes a long way. Kindness is free. Being kind is really a good thing. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share these videos. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section. And as always, take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Be kind. And this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're signing out. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.